Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the heart of the colossal council chamber, her petite human frame dwarfed by towering alien delegates surrounding her. The air buzzed faintly as translation systems worked overtime, converting her speech into dozens of tongues and thought forms. Clutching a datapad that held the culmination of her life's research, she masked the nerves churning inside her. The Galactic Defense Council had convened in this very hall for more than 3 centuries. Polished Zephyrian crystal lined the walls, glowing a soft azure, while the ceiling arched so high that wisps of cloud coiled near its peak. As a child, Alina had dreamed of this place. Now that she was here, she wasn't sure if it was brilliance or madness that brought her. "The human seeks the floor," announced Counselor Vexen, a Zephyrion whose glittering body resembled a sculpted prism. His words emerged as melodic chimes, swiftly converted by the translator into standard galactic dialect. "I fail to see what a species not yet past half a century in space could possibly offer this council." Alina flushed but stood firm. "Honored members," she began, voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I present a warship concept, one capable of reshaping how we resist the Hygeman incursion." A harsh, grinding resonance echoed through the chamber. Was laughter issuing from Warlord Kess, a towering brutarian whose species had crafted warships before humanity lit its first fire. Folding his massive arms, he rumbled, "Tiny human, my people have mastered the forge of battle for 10 millennia. What insight could your kind offer us?" Alina tapped her datapad. A 3D schematic emerged above her, slowly rotating. It depicted a vessel unlike any the chamber had ever seen. Alien designs favored symmetry and clarity. Hers flowed like liquid metal, organic and unpredictable. Bulges and odd protrusions dotted the hull in a configuration that defied conventional engineering. "This is the Prometheus," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "It moves via gravity distortion, fires dark matter-based weaponry, and shields itself with quantum phase manipulation." A hush fell. Then Commander Helix of the Morph Fleet raised his undulating limbs, signaling to speak. The translation struggled before finally delivering his thoughts. "These systems, such integration defies feasibility. The energy demands alone would tear a ship apart." Elena's lips curled into a smile. "They once said the same of human flight, of space travel, of faster-than-light communication. But humans have a saying, impossible simply means it hasn't been done yet." Crystalline tones rang sharply as Counselor Vex 9 interjected. "Your species is naive. Physical laws are not suggestions. We've modeled every viable design. Yours violates conservation principles outright." Without blinking, Elena brought up another section of the hologram, revealing inner systems. "I'm not breaking the laws of physics. I'm obeying them differently. This isn't chaos. Each module supports another. Waste energy from the gravity core feeds the dark matter. Harvesters, those in turn, power the phase shielding. Everything cycles, nothing wasted." From one side, a being of glimmering mist barely perceptible whispered in tones that barely triggered the translator. "The human shows plumbing where we demand structure. This is not engineering. This is, what is your word? Jury rigging." Insulted, Alina kept her tone composed. "My grandfather was a mechanic who fixed anything with parts and intuition. My grandmother, a scientist who questioned accepted truths. They taught me the best breakthroughs come when you mix knowledge with audacity." Warlord Kess leaned forward, crystalline armor groaning. "Let's say your bizarre contraption could function. Where would you even construct such madness? No shipyard would soil its name with this gamble." Alina had prepared for this. "I don't need much. A mining station on an asteroid. Basic fabricators. A crew open to experimenting. That's it." She scanned the chamber. "I know this design seems absurd, but humans specialize in turning the absurd into real things." Murmurs broke out, hundreds of dialects whispering across the chamber's vastness. Alina glimpsed fleeting reactions: skepticism, curiosity, irritation, wonder. She didn't move, didn't look away. Fragments trickled through the translator phrases like waste of resources, human arrogance, and an amusing experiment floated in the charged air. Finally, Vex 9 struck a resonant note for silence. The Council has reviewed your submission, Dr. Vasquez. While your confidence is certainly entertaining, we cannot justify allocating major resources to such a statistically improbable undertaking. Elena's stomach dropped. But then the Zephyrion continued. Still, we are not without generosity. You are granted access to Asteroid Facility 7 Alpha, located in the outer belt. It has remained unused for 5 decades. Most of its systems are degraded, but the essentials still operate, he added. You may also request standard-grade construction materials and a modest crew of volunteer engineers. Elena felt a strange blend of gratitude and insult. They were giving her the bare minimum, likely hoping she'd crash and burn. But it was something. Humanity had built wonders from worse. Thank you, esteemed Council. What is my time frame? Galactic Cycle, Commander Helix replied. If by then you produce a result worthy of Council review, we may consider additional investment. And if I don't? Helix's tentacles twisted into a complex motion. The translator failed to decode it, but Elena understood. It meant, this conversation will never happen again. She gathered her datapad and turned to leave when Warlord Kess's voice boomed across the chamber. What makes you believe you can succeed where minds far greater have failed? She pivoted, staring up at the hulking Brutarian. Because you've all approached this problem from the same direction for millennia. Sometimes the answer comes from someone who doesn't know it's supposed to be impossible. Then she smiled. And humans thrive on proving people wrong. Alien amusement echoed in various forms: laughter, whistles, subsonic vibrations. Elena made her way toward the exit. Behind her, she heard Vex 9 murmur to a fellow counselor. At least watching them collapse will be informative. Elena didn't flinch. She was already thinking ahead. Her mind drifted to 7, Alpha abandoned, half-dead, and perfect. She thought about the few engineers mad enough to follow her. It's about the vessel still etched into her imagination like a living blueprint. They thought they were casting her into failure. But they'd given her exactly what she needed. Freedom to build, to test, to try the impossible without interruption. As the massive chamber doors closed behind her, Elena whispered to herself, 1 year to build the impossible. She smiled to herself. Good thing the impossible is what I do best. The first phase of her mission was over. Now came the hard part. 3 months after her address to the Council, Elena stood on the observation deck of Asteroid Facility 7 Alpha, gazing down at her team, assembling what might become the most unconventional warship in galactic memory. The station drifted silently in the void, wedged between 2 long-dead planets. Far from trade routes or fleet patrols, it was precisely where the Council wanted isolated, forgotten. The facility itself had seen better centuries. Lights flickered or failed entirely. Gravity cut in and out, forcing them to anchor tools and equipment. The air system wheezed and groaned with every cycle. But the construction hangars were stable and the essential tools still ran. Most importantly, no one was around to tell them no. Elena's team was as unorthodox as the vessel they were building. She had anticipated a lonely effort, but rumors of her insane human project had echoed through certain undercurrents. Of the galaxy soon, misfits began arriving, engineers dismissed for being too radical, scientists exiled for asking inconvenient questions, mechanics who ignored protocols in favor of results. They found their way to her asteroid. Marcus Webb served as her second. A human engineer infamous for being expelled from 3 shipyards over unauthorized experiments. He stood beside her now in a grease-streaked utility suit, grinning at the chaos below. When you said different, Elena, I thought you meant tweaks to old schematics. This is pure madness. She laughed, the best kind. She gestured toward the bay, where the vessel's skeletal frame began to take form. The curvature of that central spine. No alien engineer would shape it like that. It violates their preferred algorithms. But humans know straight lines aren't always the answer. Below, a Zephyrion named Crick7 carefully embedded crystal nodes into what resembled a metallic nervous system. Crick had been exiled for daring to propose improvements to their sacred crystal tech. Now, He worked elbow-deep in human alloys and morphid biocircuits, fusing ancient materials with experimental thought. The crystals are adapting, Crick chimed through his translator. His voice sparkled with childlike excitement. They're responding to the ship's behavior, not locked into static routines. Your human idea of intuition applied to crystalline logic hits. Extraordinary. Nearby at the developing engine core, a morphid technician hunched silently over the shifting mechanisms. An engineer named Flexes coiled her tentacles around the intricate machinery she was modifying. Her people had exiled her for daring to alter traditional biohip constructs. She'd crossed half the galaxy to join Elena's project after whispers of it reached her through hidden engineering networks. The biometal is reacting exceptionally well, Flexes reported, her translator echoing her fluid movements. It binds with both crystalline and standard alloys in ways no one predicted. The hull will self-heal and adapt to varied damage types. Elena descended from the observation deck to the main bay, stepping carefully around exposed conduits and half-assembled systems. The vessel didn't resemble any ship she had studied during her formal training. It looked grown, not assembled. Organic contours flowed into hard geometries. Subsystems that should have been isolated were interwoven, forming a kind of living circuit. Dr. Vasquez called Tommy Chen, a young human mechanic known for making wildly incompatible technologies. Function as one. Gravity drive housings ready for testing.
Albert.
It doesn't look like the original model. Curious, Elena walked over. The gravity drive was meant to consist of evenly spaced, rigid rings. Instead, Tommy had created something resembling a mechanical blossom, with petal-like segments that shifted gently, reacting to unseen forces. What made you change the blueprint? Elena asked, not with criticism, but genuine interest. Tommy wiped oil from his fingers with a well-used cloth. The first design could have worked, but it resisted itself. All those aligned elements were creating stress zones. So I let the parts settle where they wanted to be, then built the supports around them. Now it's sturdier and runs at 30% less power. Elena stared at the humming core, thoughts racing. This was the spark she had envisioned, human instinct, blending with alien frameworks to craft something superior to both. Tommy, you're a genius. How did you even figure that out? He grinned. My dad always said machines want to work right. You just got to shut up and listen. Over the following weeks, similar breakthroughs unfolded across the vessel. Systems evolved almost organically and, in the weapons bay, designs crafted by a discredited ethereal known as WISP-9, integrated human-style energy focusing, techniques creating dark matter beams more focused and powerful than anything in the conventional galactic arsenal. Defensive systems were equally groundbreaking. A team of exiled multi-species engineers fused energy shielding with armor capable of phasing between dimensions. Elena's favorite breakthrough, however, came from the most unlikely place. Old Pete, a human janitor, who had somehow ended up aboard 7 Alpha. One day, as he mopped the corridor beside the primary hall frame, he glanced up and said, "Jano, ships ought to sing." Sing? Elena asked, puzzled. Yeah, my granddad built boats. Swore a well-built hull had its own music when the wind kissed it right. At first, Elena dismissed it as poetic rambling. Crick 7 was intrigued. Together, he and Pete developed resonant chambers using unused cavities in the ship's structure. These chambers responded to certain frequencies, effectively acting as a passive early warning system. When the ship encountered unusual energy patterns or hostile scans, the tone changed, alerting the crew instantly long before computers could react. The most difficult hurdle remained the same, making everything work together. Most alien ships strictly separated core systems to avoid interference. Elena's design demanded total integration real-time, communication and power exchange between radically different technologies. It shouldn't function, muttered Dr. YSSL, a serpentine Syrian engineer, known for ideas that had gotten her barred from formal research. Zephyrion crystal logic and morphid biomatter, those energies repel. Their base frequencies are wildly incompatible. Lena stood nearby, observing YSSL link, a crystal conduit to a biometal junction, using an adapter Tommy had jury-rigged. From salvaged components, as the final connection snapped into place, the system pulsed, then smoothed into a steady glow. Both subsystems suddenly operated at higher efficiency than before. Maybe they're not supposed to connect, Alina murmured. But maybe supposed to isn't as relevant as can. She smiled. Humans have a long history of forcing mismatched things to cooperate. We call it innovation. By the 6th month, the ship no longer felt like a project. It felt alive. The biometal. The biometal hull rippled gently at the slightest touch. The embedded crystals gave off a soft hum, almost like contentment, and the gravity drive occasionally distorted the space around it. Despite being idle, this ship was becoming something wholly new. A blend of alien technologies and cultural ideologies unified not by consensus, but by sheer human willpower and ingenuity. Alina stood on the ship's bridge, gazing out through transparent aluminum viewports at the distant stars. Around her, the controls reflected a strange harmony holographic projections, neural interfaces, and even manual switches. To alien sensibilities, it looked like chaos. But to Alina, the order was crystal clear. She's nearly complete, Marcus said, stepping onto the bridge beside her. Give it 1 more month and we'll start the full system diagnostics. Alina nodded absently, her eyes fixed on a flickering screen showing galactic news updates. Hegemon attacks were escalating. The Defense Council fleets were stretched thin and increasingly ineffective. Her ship might be ready just in time to make a difference. Marcus, she said softly, we're about to find out if impossible really is just another word. For untried, the Prometheus Rising moved through space like it was alive. Its hull shimmered between black and silver, catching the light of distant stars. Alina sat in the command chair, fingers resting on control surfaces that radiated subtle warmth. The ship pulsed gently beneath her. Around the bridge, alien and human technologies functioned not only in tandem, but in elegant, mutual rhythm. All systems green, Marcus reported from navigation. His voice carried the same note of wonder he'd held since their first flight 3 days earlier. Gravity drive is operating perfectly. We're sustaining FTL travel on less energy than a standard carrier-class vessel. Alina watched the stars streak by on the view screen. The sensation was unlike anything she'd experienced on conventional ships. There were no lurching starts or bone-jarring shifts. The Prometheus Rising glided through space as if sailing on gravitational tides. Crix. How are the navigation crystals behaving? She asked. Crix, glowing with soft blue light, responded, They are singing, Captain. The crystals are anticipating trajectory adjustments before we make them. The ship is learning to move on its own. The weapons station, Wispenine's ethereal. Voice filtered in. Dark matter stores remain full. 6 high-power discharges available. Energy harvesting rates exceed projection models. Alina had insisted on a minimal test crew, just 12, from 6 different species. Every one of them had helped design and construct the ship. They understood its eccentricities better than any outside crew ever could. Now, it patrolled the outer rim, conducting real-time performance tests, far from populated zones yet close. Enough to potential threats? Contact long-range sensors, Flexis announced from the comms array, her tentacles moving fluidly over the bioneural interface grid. Multiple vessels inbound, high velocity. Vector aligned with Kepler mining colony. Lena leaned forward, eyes narrowing as the tactical display adjusted. 7 ships. Tight formation. Her energy patterns unmistakable Hegemon raiders. The colony had only rudimentary defenses. Over 10,000 civilian workers lived and labored there. At current velocity, how long until they reached the colony? She asked. 23 minutes, Marcus answered grimly. Next nearest council. Patrol is 6 hours out. Elena's heartbeat surged. This was the moment the Prometheus Rising had been built for. Combat had always been a possibility, just not this soon. What defenses does the colony have? She asked. 2 orbital platforms armed with light. Energy turrets, Flexis replied, scanning archived colonial specs. against 7 hegemony raiders. It won't last 5 minutes. Alina didn't hesitate. Plot an intercept course, as fast as speed possible. Marcus's voice was low. Alina, are you sure? The weapons haven't seen real action. We have no data on battle response. Alina looked around the bridge, locking eyes with each crew member. Concern showed, but behind it burned fierce resolve. They'd given up everything to make this ship real. Now was their reckoning. This is what she was made for, Alina said. And they need us now. She hit the come switch. All hands, this is your captain. We're moving to intercept hostile forces approaching a civilian colony. This is our first combat trial. You all know your stations. It's time to prove what human engineering can do. Prometheus Rising accelerated with a grace no galactic vessel had ever achieved. The gravity drive didn't push it curved space around the ship, crafting a bubble of altered physics. Within 10 minutes, they crossed what should have taken an hour. Dropping from FTL, Marcus said. Visual on colony, raiders forming attack pattern. Alina studied the display. The hegemony warships were colossal, twice the Prometheus's size, bristling with cannons and shield arrays. Any GDC tactician would recommend retreat. Incoming hail from lead raider, Flexes reported. Put it up, Alina ordered. The screen lit up with a sneering commander, his face battle-scarred and smug. Behind him, a warbridge built for carnage. Unidentified craft, he sneered. You're interfering in a lawful hegemony operation. Withdraw or be annihilated. Alina stood, making sure her human features were visible. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Prometheus Rising. You're attacking civilians under Galactic Defense Council protection. You have 30 seconds to retreat or face retaliation. The commander laughed, harsh and cruel. One ship? Against us? Your species is as suicidal as they say the screen cut. Weapons locking on, Wisp 9 said. All 7 ships are targeting us. Lena dropped into her seat. Tommy engaged quantum phase armor. T-Quicks. Begin evasive patterns using the gravity drive. Wisp. Arm dark matter cannons. Phase armor online, Tommy confirmed. From engineering. Hull shifting to quantum state. We're partially phased across space-time layers. Gravity drive set for tactical maneuvering, Crix reported. Artificial field is stable. Dark matter weaponry fully charged, Wisp 9 added. Whispered target the lead vessel, Alina ordered. The hegemony's opening salvo came like a universal law of annihilation. Blinding plasma and charged particle fire enough to atomize. Most warships slammed into the Prometheus Rising and passed clean through. The quantum phase armor had nudged the vessel just out of phase with standard reality, rendering it nearly untouchable to traditional munitions. Direct hit. Came a hegemony gunner's voice over an open frequency. Wait, no damage? The hell? Elena's smile was tight. Return fire. Focus on their weapon banks. The dark matter cannons roared, more felt than heard, like space-time itself being shredded. Violet-black lances ripped through the void and slammed into the lead warship's weapon mounts.
Ow.
The energy reacted violently with the hegemony shielding, triggering chain failures across the entire system, nearly having their offensive power. In seconds, impossible. Another voice burst out over comms. Our shields resist all energy types. They've never encountered dark matter tech, Wisp 9 said with dry pride. Can't adapt to what you don't understand. The enemy fleet tried to encircle Prometheus, but the gravity drive made mockery of their tactics. Lena's ship moved like thought pivoting in defiance of inertia, surging in multiple vectors at once, briefly skipping through light speed even within combat range. This is madness, Marcus breathed, tracking the display. We're weaving circles around them. 2 more warships buckled under precise dark matter strikes. Their armor, meant to repel traditional galactic firepower, simply disintegrated. Under the alien energy, one lost propulsion and spun uncontrollably. Another had its entire command center vaporized. Unknown craft, what are you? Came a panicked broadcast from the few raiders still intact. Alina responded coolly. We are what happens when humanity builds without limits. The final hegemony ships launched a last-ditch barrage, pouring their combined arsenal into one desperate strike. but the phase armor and gravity drive made connecting even a single shot a statistical miracle. Meanwhile, Prometheus's cannons kept firing methodical, unrelenting, stripping each raider of weapons, engines, command. In under 20 minutes, the battle was all but decided. All 7 hegemony ships were either destroyed or rendered inoperable. Not a single shot had so much as grazed the Prometheus Rising. Incoming transmission from Colony Command, Flexes reported. They're asking who we are and how we arrived so fast. Alina exhaled slowly, still pulsing with post-battle adrenaline. Around her, the bridge crew murmured in stunned joy, trying to absorb what their miracle vessel had just achieved. Send our ID, Alina instructed, and request they forward a complete battle report to the Galactic Defense Council. Include all performance data shields, weapons, the whole thing, Lena Marcus said quietly, eyes on the carnage still glowing on the TAC display. 7 raiders, no damage, no casualties. We just did the impossible. Lena studied the floating wrecks and grateful messages pouring in from the colony below. We've proved human design doesn't just work, it redefines the standard. The galaxy's about to notice. The Galactic Defense Council chamber buzzed like a swarm. Dozens of species shouted across one another as battle footage replayed on massive holoscreens. The Prometheus Rising carving through hegemony ships, untouched, flying in ways that shattered conventional doctrine. Alina stood center stage, watching the storm she'd unleashed. Alien military tacticians scrambled to understand it. 3 weeks had passed since the Kepler colony skirmish, but word had spread like plasma through vacuum. Every major faction now demanded answers. The sensors are corrupted, barked Admiral Vex of the Theon Navy, his polished voice slicing through the chaos. A ship can't pivot like that without disintegration. The crew would be paced, and those weapon traces nonsense, declared Fleet Commander Shao, a 6-limbed hexapod whose people had spent millennia refining energy warfare. Dark matter cannot be formed into beams. It should collapse instantly. Alina had heard it all before, denials in the face of undeniable proof. She waited, silent, until the chamber's noise reached a lull. Council members, she began, voice steady, you insist my ship can't do what it has clearly done. Maybe the failure isn't in the ship, but in your idea of what's possible. Silence followed. Counselor Vex9 clicked in frustration. Dr. Vasquez, your craft contradicts established laws of physics. We require full technical examination to comprehend its capabilities. Alina was ready. I'll allow a limited inspection, but only 2 engineers capable of abandoning outdated models. Otherwise, all they'll see is disorder, when in fact they do not understand human engineering philosophy. Warlord Kess leaned forward, the floor groaning beneath his bulk. Philosophy? This is military tech, not art school. We need answers. How does your gravity drive function? How does your ship not rip apart in those turns? Alina tapped her pad, casting a simplified schematic into the air. It doesn't fight gravity. It flows with it. Space is full of natural curves, eddies, and momentum channels. Instead of forcing a path, we follow the existing ones. Less strain, more speed. Dr. Raff, chief engineer of the Morph fleet, flicked his tentacles in bafflement. But those equations, too many variables for any computer. It's impossible to calculate in real time. Alina smiled faintly. That's why we don't leave it to computers. Our pilot senses those forces and reacts with intuition. Can't code instinct into a system. The chamber erupted with disbelief. Most species trusted only logic, and mathematics intuition was for poetry, not battlecraft. This is absurd, snapped Vex9. You're claiming your ship runs on unquantifiable human feelings. Lena calmly shook her head. Not feelings, experience, muscle memory, pattern awareness. Marcus, our pilot, has worked with drives since he was 15. He moves through space the way a dancer moves across a stage, by feel, not formula. Commander Helix of the Morphid fleet raised a cluster of waving limbs. Even if we accept this, it's an unconventional approach. Your weapons are another matter. Dark matter weapons have never worked. How did you contain it? Alina projected a new schematic, showing a constant loop system. We didn't. We bypassed containment entirely. Instead of storing dark matter, we harvest it mid-cycle and fire immediately. It never lingers long enough to destabilize. Wisp. 9. The floating energy theorist drifted forward to peer at the projection. But such a method would demand titanic energy levels. No vessel can produce that kind of output. Ask ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT. Alina pointed to another section of the schematic. We don't generate the power, we borrow it. The gravity drive bends spacetime, and those distortions feed our dark matter collectors. The quantum phase armor draws energy from dimensional shifts. Every system powers every other. The council erupted again. Alien engineers struggled to grasp the idea. Their designs relied on modular systems, separate, isolated, easily maintained. Elena's ship was different. It functioned like a living organism, deeply integrated, every part interdependent. That level of integration makes your vessel extremely fragile, noted Costas, a methodical robotic fleet engineer. One failure cascades through all systems. That's flawed design. Lena had heard this before. Conventional systems. Yes. But my ship learns. It adapts. When one part strains, others pick up the slack. The biometal hull reroutes energy. Crystals shift processing priorities. Quantum arrays redistribute loads between layers. Dr. Isle, a former colleague who'd worked alongside Alina, slithered forward. I spent 6 months helping build that ship. What she says is true. It behaves beyond normal engineering logic. It's almost aware. This sparked the loudest uproar yet. A truly conscious vessel threatens centuries of dogma. Most species saw technology as tools, nothing more. Partners, unthinkable. Admiral Vex's voice cut through the noise. Conscious or not, we must understand it. The hegemony is mobilizing the largest offensive in galactic history. Intelligence shows 300 warships preparing for a massive strike. We need every edge we can get. Elena's blood ran cold. 300 ships. Even with the Prometheus rising, one vessel couldn't stop that. How long? She asked. Commander Helix scanned his tactical display. 6 months. There. Pulling forces from across their reach and building new ships just for this campaign. Our current fleets can't hold them. Alina looked around. Centuries of command experience stared back, but none had faced a threat like this. Standard doctrine wouldn't save them. Council members, Alina said quietly. There's a solution, but you'll have to trust human methods completely. Counselor Dex 9 replied warily. What are you suggesting? Alina drew a breath. Give me a fleet. Your best ships. Your most creative engineers. I'll teach you how to hybridize, how to integrate human innovation into your designs. We don't have time to build more ships like the Prometheus Rising, but we can transform what you already have. Silence fell. They would have to let a human modify their finest warships using techniques they couldn't even begin to understand. For civilizations built on tradition, it meant abandoning everything they knew about engineering. Warlord Kess spoke first. How many ships do you need? Lena had pondered this since the Kepler colony battle. 20 vessels, mixed classes, diverse technologies, and full freedom to modify them as I see fit. The risk is significant, Admiral Vex said. If your upgrades fail, we lose 20 of our best ships. Alina met his gaze. If we do nothing, you lose everything. The hegemony isn't coming to parley, they're coming to conquer. Standard fleets and tactics won't hold. Council members turned to one another, speaking rapidly in their native tongues. Lena heard scraps of conversations about logistics, political fallout, military desperation. At last, Counselor X9 called for silence. The council has made its decision, the Zephyrian declared. You'll receive 20 ships and the engineering crews you require. But Dr. Vasquez, understand this. The fate of the galaxy may rest on your shoulders. Alina nodded gravely. I understand. Human engineering has never failed when it mattered most. It won't start now. The hybrid fleet hovered in orbit like sculpted fragments of a shared dream. 20 ships, once considered conventional warships, now bore the unmistakable stamp of humanity. Organic contours melded into geometric symmetry. Biometal plating gleamed beside crystalline lattice, and energy patterns flickered in ways alien computers couldn't model. Alina stood on the Prometheus Rising's bridge, watching the upgraded fleet through the view screen. For months of non-stop labor had turned Admiral Vex's cruiser into a ship that could phase through dimensional layers. Commander Helix's bioship could now bend gravity fields using intuitive, human-designed controls. Even Warlord Kess's mighty dreadnought had been retrofitted with dark matter collectors powered by its own weapons. "Fleet status?" Alina called. Here comes Officer Flexus waved her tentacles over bioneural relays, receiving live reports from all vessels. All ships report ready. Hybrid crews are adapting well to human-style integrated systems. Captain Ivor says his Zephyrian cruiser thinks alongside him, not just obeys. Alina smiled. That was exactly her goal. Human engineering didn't dominate machines, it collaborated with them. They weren't tools, they were partners. Long-range scans picking up the hegemony. "Fleet," announced Marcus from navigation. 312 ships, flying perfect formation to ward the core systems. They'll breach our front in 6 hours. Alina eyed the tactical display, showing the enemy wall advancing. "The hegemony," Marcus reported. "Remaining hegemony ships are engaging faster than light retreat." Alina stared at the tactical map, the flickering remains of what had once been the most powerful invasion force in galactic history now scattered wreckage across the stars. Over 200 enemy warships had been destroyed or rendered inoperable. The hybrid fleet had lost only 3. All vessels stand down from battle readiness. Alina transmitted fleet-wide. "You've done something extraordinary today. You've protected this galaxy." In the hours that followed, as rescue shuttles deployed and diagnostic systems poured in status updates, messages of astonished praise began arriving from across the stars. What was never supposed to work had worked better than anyone had dreamed. Human engineering had faced its greatest challenge and shattered every expectation. Admiral Vex called her directly from aboard the Phoenix Dawn. "Dr. Vasquez, I must admit something. When you presented those designs to the Council, I dismissed you as an idealist, someone reckless, with impossible ideas. But I see now, you weren't dreaming. You were pointing the way forward." Lena watched the shimmering hulls of her fleet vessels. Built from a dozen different species technologies, fused by human problem-solving and creative thinking. "Admiral, this is only the start. Every species brings something remarkable to the table. Humanity's strength is knowing how to make all those pieces fit together." As word of the victory spread, Alina received inquiries from hundreds of planetary governments, academies, and engineers all wanting access to Earth's new approach. The age of symmetry, hierarchy, and traditional starship theory was collapsing. In its place rose a new paradigm cross-species, cooperation, fluid adaptation, and innovation without limits. One that would reshape not just war but medicine, exploration, and every facet of science. Alina gazed out at the stars and thought back to the day her proposal had been ridiculed. Lecture hall of doubters to a war front of believers. The path had not been easy, but humanity had proved something vital. Impossible was only what hadn't been tried. And now that it had, the galaxy would never be the same again, asked ChatGPT.